Hey guys, Mike here, and in this video we're going to have a look at the Asus Zenbook UX305UA. This is a sleek ultra-portable laptop with a matte 13-inch screen, Intel Skylake hardware and an affordable price, but it's not necessarily the best pick for everyone, and you'll find out why if you stick with me for the next few minutes. This Zenbook is thin and light. It weighs 2.85 pounds and is just 0.6 of an inch thick, which corroborated with the sturdy build and the compact size make it ideal for travelers, commuters or students. It's available in two colors. Our test model comes in the darker shade called Obsidian Stone, while the other choice is lighter and is the one I'd recommend because it's not going to show smudges and fingerprints as easily as this darker variant. This aside though, the laptop is a real looker, and it feels very nice in daily use, pretty much on par with the MacBook Air, the Dell XPS 13 and some of the other premium machines. It's also sturdy built with little flex in the hood and the keyboard frame, and it's entirely made out of metal. The lid gets a textured finishing with a ripple pattern around the shiny Asus logo. Looks great, but it will scratch easily, so make sure you treat the laptop well. Asus includes a pretty good protective sleeve in the pack, so you'll probably want to use it. The interior is made from a rougher type of aluminum, which handles scratches a lot better, but is at the same time more difficult to wipe clean. The underbelly is metallic as well, and down here you'll notice the two rubber feet which offer decent grip, an air intake grill and the speaker cuts on the sides. Back to that interior, you notice there's enough room for a full-size keyboard and a large trackpad, but also a roomy palm rest that provides proper support when typing. The design is clean and simple, albeit there are some stickers on the left side which you'll probably want to peel off. The laptop feels friendly in daily use, mainly thanks to its low profile and rounded corners, cause otherwise the edges are rather sharp. Overall though, it's a pleasure to use it every day. The UX305UA is not a convertible, and as a result the hinge can only be opened to around 130–135 degrees. That's enough for desk use, but very limiting in certain situations. My issue is with the hinge's feel though, and perhaps I'm nitpicking here, but it's a bit too weak for my liking. It's true that it allows to lift the screen extremely easily with a single hand, that's great, but at the same time I wish it would provide better support and actually keep the screen as set up all the time. Another aspect to discuss is the I/O on the sides. You'll get 3 USB slots on this laptop, a card reader, a headphone microphone jack, a PSU on the right and a mini HDMI port as the only video output option. Asus includes an USB to LAN adapter in the pack, but no mini HDMI to HDMI adapter, so you'll have to buy one yourself if you want to output content onto a bigger screen. Okay, let's talk about the screen. The UX305UA is only available with matte non-touch panels, which for me is one of its main selling points. Asus offers the laptop with either 1920 by 1080 pixels or 3200 by 1800 pixels IPS displays. Both are solid options, with the latter being sharper, brighter and more color accurate. Our review unit comes with this QHD Plus display, and you'll find more about it from the written review available on ultrabookreview.com. Where your hands go, you'll find a decent keyboard with proper sized and spaced keys and an overall decent layout except for two aspects: the tiny arrow keys and the power button integrated as the top right key. You should also know that this keyboard is not backlit, which can be a deal breaker for many of you, especially if you're already coming from a laptop with illuminated keys. As for the typing experience, well, like I said earlier, this keyboard types well once you get a hold of it, but the keys are shallow and just too soft for my liking. I'm actually used to short stroke keys, as the keyboard on my XPS 13 is even shallower than on this notebook, but even so I didn't get to feel comfortable with the feedback on this one, not even after typing several thousand words on it. Do keep in mind that I have very high requirements and expectations from a keyboard, and most users don't, and should find this keyboard good enough for daily use. As for the trackpad, it's spacious, has a nice beveled ridge around it and a smoother textures than the palm rest around. It's also responsive and accurate most of the time, and gestures work really well from the standard 2-finger scrolling and zooming to the 3-finger ones in Windows 10. On the other hand, it's an Asus touchpad, and that means the software offers very little customization options. You can adjust the cursor's response, but you'll struggle to find the right balance between speed and precision, and there's no way to adjust the tap response, and as a result light taps aren't always registered properly. That means you'll have to use physical clicks, which are actually stiff and clunky. All this aside, let's see how this laptop performs in daily use. Our test unit gets an Intel Core i7-6500U processor, 8GB of RAM and a 256GB SSD, so it's one of the higher end configurations Asus offers for this computer. The storage drive can be upgraded, and for that you'll have to pop open the back panel. The laptop uses M.2 SATA 80mm SSDs. The RAM and the CPU are soldered on the PCB and non-upgradable. Specs aside, the computer feels very snappy in daily use, but you should take care of the pre-installed software if you want to speed up the experience even more. Also, keep in mind that while the SSD included is miles faster than a regular hard drive, it's not as fast as some of the more modern solutions available these days. Regardless, browsing with multiple tabs open, office use, and any sorts of multimedia content are a breeze for this machine. In fact, if you plan to get it for such tasks, I'd suggest picking the Core i5-6200U configuration, which is going to be fast enough and more affordable. Just stay away from the options with only 4GB of RAM though. Now, if you plan to push the computer a bit more and perhaps run some programming software or maybe Photoshop or Premiere for some light video or photo edits, the Core i7-6500U processor is the option to get. You'll find benchmark results in the written articles, as long as details on how this computer handles games. Now, I'm an advocate of cool and quiet ultraportables, and the Zenbook UX305UA checks just one of these boxes. It runs cool, both in daily use and under serious load. It's not as quiet as it could be though. There's a fan inside which tends to kick in quite aggressively, even when performing casual activities like watching a YouTube clip or browsing between a few different tabs. It's not always active, and once it kicks on, it will only run for a short while if you're using the computer lightly, but I'd prefer it won't kick in at all with these casual activities, especially since the fan's low speed is fairly audible in a quiet room. Under load, the fan gets much noisier, but both the inner and outer temperatures remain low. Still, the speakers will do a decent job covering the noise, although they are far from great. They're loud enough to fill a mid-sized room, reaching about 85 decibels at head level, yet not as loud as the speakers on the XPS 13, which actually packs some of the better audio in the class. The sound they're pushing is tiny though and somewhat distorted. Connecting a pair of headphones helps, but only to some extent, since the audio output lacks the volume and especially the clarity delivered by other laptops. When it comes to connectivity, the UX305UA offers Bluetooth, Wi-Fi AC and wired connection via the included USB to LAN adapter. Asus went with an Intel 7265AC dual-band wireless module, the same as on the previous UX305LA. And in the few days I've used this laptop, I haven't run into any problems with it. The chip is also a good performer when in close proximity of a router, but the transfer speeds drop significantly once you get a bit further. So if you have poor Wi-Fi signal in your home or office, this laptop might not deliver for you. That aside, Asus puts a 56Wh battery on the Zenbook UX305UA, and this translates in around 4 hours of heavy use and up to 9 hours of video playing, streaming or light browsing. Keep in mind that our review unit is bundled with the QHD Plus screen option, which takes its toll on battery life, so the full HD models will actually last longer. There's one more thing we should talk about before wrapping up, and that's how much this machine costs. The Zenbook UX305UA is available in Europe, Asia and some other regions, but not in the US at the time of this post. In Germany, a base model with a Core i5-6200U processor, 8GB of RAM, 256GB SSD and a Full HD screen retails for €999, while higher spec versions get a Core i7 processor, 512GB of storage and a QHD Plus screen and sell for up to €1399. In the US, you can only find the Zenbook UX303UA at the time of this post, a Skylake 13-incher with a touchscreen and a backlit keyboard, selling for as little as $850. The UX305 models are historically more affordable than the UX303 versions, hence we can assume that Asus will have the UX305UA starting at around $799. However, I can't tell for sure when or even if the Zenbook UX305UA will be available in stores in North America, but check out the written article where I'll provide updates as soon as I have any news. So, drawing the line, the Zenbook UX305UA is a really good 13-inchers with one serious ace down its sleeve: the price. It's also a nice looking and well built machine, gets an excellent screen, performs just as expected from a Skylake powered laptop and lasts for a long while on each charge. But despite all this, it's not going to be the ideal pick for everyone, and that's because it doesn't get a touchscreen and lacks a backlit keyboard, so you should only get one if you can accept these two aspects. There's also room for improvement in the keyboard department. You'll have to spend extra for some adapters as the I/O is limited, the Wi-Fi range is rather short and the notebook doesn't run as quiet as some of the other similar ultraportables available these days. But again, it outmatches the competition by several $100. Dell's XPS 13 is the alternative, more compact, lighter, quieter and available with a backlit keyboard, but at least $300 more expensive spec for spec. So if you're on a budget, the Zenbook UX305UA is the one to get, as long as you can actually find it in your region. With that in mind, we'll wrap this up here. Thanks for watching, hit that like button if you enjoyed the clip and subscribe to the channel for future updates. I'll see you in the next one.